Just go for it!
I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff. I like the dark stuff. Give me the dark stuff.
If you don't say that we've got time.
Yes, I'm just a
You ain't seen sadness. Clockwork, orange madness left the scene laughing.
Hey, we forever, ever.
matches underwater.
From the flame. Trapped between stations. We'll forget their manners.
I be floating way up so high, looking down at all my buddies saying you chumps.
Hey everybody, it's me, your buddy Dave, the host here at the Dark Stuff channel. Thanks a lot for checking out the new video. As you might have guessed from the title, from the front, face card or whatever you call it, it's time for the top 20 albums of 2020. Now, you've just seen my picks for 20 through 11, so you know kind of where my head's at. If you're a long-time watcher of the channel, you're kind of going to have an idea of who's going to be in my top 10, but let's not give it any spoilers. Let's just start getting into it with number 10. Yeah, number 10 belongs to the Mommyheads, a great band from New York, veteran band. They started in the 80s. I have an earlier video from this year, from just a couple months ago, where I interviewed Adam Elk, who's the frontman of the band, and we go over the entire history. They rose up the indie scene in the 90s, got to the major label thing, had one album, it didn't do well, and the band was over. But they've been back for over 10 years, and they're in a very prolific period. The new album, New Kings of Pop, is just, it's fucking exquisite, man. I mean, it sounds so good because Adam does own a studio, so that kind of helps when you own the studio and you're not rushed for time. Great songs, topically moving in a little bit more political direction. This was recorded in 2019, I believe, and came out here in 2020. So it's not like you're not going to hear like "fuck Trump," in some song or whatever. It's much more subtle and intricate in that than that sort of thing. They do have a song called Greta Thunberg, or that's how we would pronounce it, but Thunberg, I think, is her name. The Swedish climate activist, a teenager who is made internationally famous a couple years ago. Got a song dedicated to her. Fantastic, addition to the Mommyheads catalog, in addition to the fact that they've been remastering and re-releasing all their old 90s stuff, which was pretty much impossible to find. Great record, great band, the Mommyheads, New Kings of Pop.
You control, drink me, shake down, make a toast to the loss you allowed it.
Okay, number 9 is Sad 13's album Haunted Painting. It's Sadie from the band Speedy Ortiz. She's the front person, guitarist. Great indie rock band with all the perfect reference points. Dinosaur Jr., Liz Phair, etc. Great stuff. But this is Sadie's solo project, and when she put out the first Sad 13 record a few years ago, it was mostly like electronic arrangements, still her type of songs. It's like she's a good songwriter, and I think she was looking for different outlets to present her songs that weren't necessarily the guitar, bass, drums format of Speedy Ortiz. I get that. Artists get antsy. They don't like to stay in one lane, right? They want to try something different. Well, now we're a couple years later, and Sadie's released a second Sad 13 album, and in this case, I would say about half the songs are that traditional guitar, bass, drums format of Speedy Ortiz. You know, so no real difference there from a Speedy Ortiz track. There are other songs that do feature the more electronic sound. There's another song with like strings and horns and stuff, which I'm not sure if it's real strings and horns or the synthetic ones, but it sounds really good. It's probably in the credits, but you know, that's a little too much work for me. Anyways, it's a great record because I do really like Sadie's sound. I like her approach. I like the way she phrases things and stuff. I'm just wondering if this is a prelude to ending Speedy Ortiz, because if she could do that herself, you know, what do you need the full band for? I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying. Coming in at number 8 is an LA garage rock band called the Death Valley Girls, and their newest album, Under the Spell of Joy, is really, really good. It hit me like by total surprise. This is actually the band's 4th album, and I've been talking about it for a while, playing on my show. I mentioned it in an earlier video, and the funny thing was, I didn't even realize until I started doing a little research for this video that the band features former Hole drummer Patty Schemmel. I'm like, whoa, what? You know, I saw Hole a number of times back in the 90s, and she was the drummer in that period. So it certainly brings me back to a great, you know, bygone era, it seems. I know that she left the band in kind of a cloud of mystery at the end of the 90s. There were some drug issues, etc., but she's cleaned up her act. She was part of that short-lived Hole reunion a couple years ago, which feels like more like 10 or 15 years ago. I have no idea how long ago it was. It was a while, you know. But now she's had this band, and this is their 4th record, and her brother Larry Schemmel, by the way, is also in the band. These guys are great. They're just the right mix of psychedelic sounds in mixed with garage rock. They're fantastic. There are parts of like freak out Stooges kind of jams, and they did get an endorsement from Iggy Pop, who said they're a great band. And I don't look necessarily to Iggy to give me new music recommendations, but shit, he seems to be pretty on top of it in terms of this one. So this is a really, really enjoyable record from a band that I had no idea. Now I've got 3 older records that I can go and dig and research and enjoy those kinds of records, because they're probably really good too. But we're talking about Death Valley Girls, Under the Spell of Joy.
What it feels like walking in a straight line, straight talk clicking in my ear. This is what it feels like, cliff top.
Number 7 is the Seattle band Deep Sea Diver with their 3rd album, Impossible Weight. The band is fronted by former Shins guitar player Jessica Dobson, and I'm really, really impressed with her songwriting, her guitar playing, her voice, her singing. This record is just fantastic, exquisitely produced indie pop. I know she was a former guitar player in the Shins, and I'm not myself a huge Shins fan, to be honest, but I feel like if you did like the Shins, you know, you would kind of know what this, you would like this, is what I'm trying to say. I mean, the songs range from kind of rockers like Lights Out, a brilliant pop song called Impossible Weight, which features Sharon Van Etten. I think if you have Sirius XM, you've heard it probably like 500 times. But it can also switch and be like kind of stark and acoustic. The song Run Away With Me, which is amazing, you know, it almost gets me all verklempt, is that sort of stark acoustic, just great song. So songwriting at its most basic level, and then Jessica and the band kind of expand on it into a number of different levels. It's a great record that keeps getting better the more I hear it and the more I try and pay attention to the lyrics, and just another great record from Deep Sea Diver.
But we can't quite face it. Get lost in the dream, now we can't.
The number 6 spot belongs to Montreal band Land of Talk with their 4th album, Indistinct Conversations. This is a perfect indie rock album, in my humble opinion. I love Elizabeth Powell's voice. I love her songs. I like the whole presentation. It sometimes feels like a throwback to the 90s, which is way okay with me. Sometimes it even goes further back than that, but the production is really bright. It's really good. Really, really strong songs throughout the entire record. There's kind of a weird, the title track, Indistinct Conversations, is sort of a weird instrumental that sticks in these little snippets of phone conversations or answering machine messages or something that maybe they relate to something or are sending you a message, but I think it was just kind of strange. That'd be the only track that I didn't really care for, but beyond that, I think if you're a fan of, say, Jay Mascis's acoustic music or the mellower side of Neil Young, artists like that, you would get a lot out of Land of Talk. Number 5 belongs to Phoebe Bridgers and Punisher, and you've probably been seeing her name in a lot of best of lists because that's what I was seeing when I was doing a little bit of research for this video. This is her second album as a solo artist, though she did do a great project with Conor Oberst's there was a band they called themselves Better Oblivion Community Center. She also did that record under the name Boy Genius with 2 other artists that was on Matador Records. That was also very, very good, but it was an EP, and I think it was a one-shot sort of deal. So it's been a couple years since Phoebe released a brand new solo album, and I haven't even heard the first album, so I can't make a comparison, but I have heard Better Oblivion and the Boy Genius stuff. This record is, I would say, if Phoebe Bridgers were a man, I would be calling it old sad bastard music. You know, it fits into that line. I think hopefully you understand what I mean. It is melancholy, it is sad, but you can't call it old sad bastard music if it's not a bastard making that music, so we'll have to come up with some other term. Phoebe Bridgers is an amazing songwriter. Her lyrics are they just penetrate. They're just so solid and so good, and can evoke just pictures, especially the song Kyoto. I can actually feel like I see it happening. I think that her time in Better Oblivion Community Center working with Conor Oberst did kind of rub off on her. I mean, I know she was a Bright Eyes fan to begin with, but if you listen to the song I Know the End, that kind of, the way that song pans out, it starts kind of quiet and then builds and builds, and I felt like it reminded me of a song off the Lifted record from Bright Eyes, which is almost like 20 years ago, and considering she's in her 20s, she was just a kid when that record came out, but still, that's kind of where I got. I mean, she took it to just an incredible level. All the praise that is being heaped on her is deserved. I think if COVID hadn't happened, she would be an even bigger deal than she is now. It's kind of, if you watch any of the late night shows, she's done appearances on them. She's been on every, KEXP and K whatever. She's done all of that stuff. And again, all the praise, totally worth it. Fantastic record. Okay, the number 4 spot belongs to David Nance and his newest record, Staunch Honey. Now, Dave shed the David Nance group, or David Nance band, or whatever it was on the last, I think it was group on the last record, and just did this record under his own name as a solo artist. It's his 5th studio album, if you don't count the old, cassettes that he used to put out, or these limited run vinyl albums of covers that he's put out over the years. So we're going to call it the 5th record. It was recorded in his home studio. It's got a really sort of folky, bluesy, garage rock sound. It's really, really great. David Nance has already proven himself as a great songwriter. And on the last album, it was more loud and rocking, and I personally fucking loved it. But he took a new turn, and he's doing something a little bit different. It's not to say that they don't jam and rock out on certain songs. This is not like, I don't know. It's not like it's a folky element, but don't confuse it to be folk music. It rocks most of the time, and when it doesn't need to, because it doesn't call for it. It's just great. So, again, just like with previous ones, I think if this record had come out with no COVID, we would be seeing David Nance all over the world, traveling and touring and supporting this record, and it would have gotten a lot more attention. It's tough in this crowded media field, considering how crazy everything is once you turn off the stereo and walk the fuck outside. The number 3 spot belongs to punk rock legend Bob Mould with his 14th solo album, Blue Hearts. Now, 14 solo albums is pretty impressive, but that doesn't even include Husker Du. That doesn't include Sugar. That doesn't include the blow-off comp thing that he did. and I think I'm skipping one or two other things. He's also produced a number of artists back in the 80s and 90s. Bob is a legend in the indie rock world. He's a legend in my world. I named my radio show New Day Rising after a Husker Du song and album. It's fair to say that there might be a little bit of bias when I'm talking about a new Bob Mould record, but I feel like I'm pretty honest in terms of what my thoughts are on the records. Even somebody who I feel is as legendary as Bob Mould. In fact, sometimes I feel like I'm almost harder on artists I already love because I know how great they can be. Well, no need to do anything about that with this new record. It is fucking awesome. So his last album, Sunshine Rock, was supposed to be Bob's turn at optimism and happiness. You know, things were going great in his life. Oh man, that was back in 2018, dude. Now, Bob is experiencing the same sort of craziness, danger, chaos, awfulness of 2020, the same as everybody else. And that's kind of the theme of what's going on in Blue Hearts. He wrote it in 2019, so it does predate COVID. It's not like he knew what was going to go on, but the sound of it, especially the first single, American Crisis, which came out in the spring of this year, so fits the era. It is unreal. Like, he almost like predicted the just overwhelming shittiness that's going on in America especially, but there is what's going on in the rest of the world too, because the pandemic is worldwide. I don't know if Trump's shittiness is worldwide, being felt worldwide or not. I think it is actually, and that's kind of adds to the chaos. 75% of this album is at Husker Du level speed in terms of how fast and how hard they're playing. Bob is like that live, but in the studio, it's not always like that. This album is a return to just the ragers from Bob Mould, and a guy at his age, he's raging like he's, you know, like it was 30 years ago or more. It's fucking just great. Another stellar record. His fifth in a row, I believe, from Bob Mould.
Kick me under the table all you want. I won't shut up. I won't shut up. Kick me under the table all.
Number 2 is the new album from Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. A fantastic record. You know that by the fact that it's number 2, of course. I did a full-length review video that I'll link to up above in the little card thing, and below in the description of the video, which I know does no good for those of us that watch YouTube on TV, but what are you going to do? I mean, I can't be there for everything, people. I can only do what I can do. Anyways, the new album from Fiona Apple, it's her 5th album. Got a perfect 10 score from Pitchfork, which I think has only been done maybe 2-3 other times in terms of any artist in the history. And if you care what Pitchfork thinks, that's pretty impressive. If you don't, well, you know, then that's just the same as any other perfect review that people get. Mostly what I have to say about the record was said in that review, so I'd prefer if people just went back and listened to that. I will say that I've gone up and down with the album in terms of I was loving it in the spring when it first came out. I kind of started feeling, I don't know, maybe it's just a little too eccentric, and I don't like it as much as I thought I did. And then I came back around, of course, in November, started playing it again, and I'm like, yeah, what the fuck is that? Of course, this is great, you know? For someone who's only released 5 albums in a 25-year career, you know that this is someone who takes time. And if I can find the video, I want to link to it. It's a guy on YouTube that does like music theory, and he can talk in real detail about, you know, notes and how you play shit and whatever. And he was talking about this album and just how really, really unique the writing is, and not just the words and the melodies, but just the style, the way Fiona plays the piano and the time changes and all of these different things that she's doing, which I would have been completely ignorant of because I'm not like a music theory person. But once I already fell in love with the album, I found the music theory commentary to be pretty interesting. Lyrically, the album does feel like it fits in this chaotic, crummy time of everybody being in lockdown, wearing masks, you know, freaking out constantly or whatever, but it was written before, in sometimes cases many years before. You know, it feels like a perfect time capsule of 2020. It's one of those albums, this one, the Bob Mould, and a handful of others that are just so of this particular year. Remember something, as shitty as this is, if we survive it, this is something you're going to be telling your kids and grandkids about, that you did live through the year 2020, and at least there was Fiona Apple there for you.
Like dice on the field, my mind turns to something useless and trite.
sometimes I even surprise myself, and I did surprise myself this year with the #1 record being Waxahatchee's album St. Cloud. It's her 5th album, and I've liked Waxahatchee pretty much since the first time that I heard her, and it's Katie Crutchfield, performs under the name Waxahatchee. The first time I heard Katie's music was probably that, I think, Cerulean Salt record from the band, and I liked it, and I appreciated her as a good singer-songwriter. I went back and I heard the earlier record, and I've heard her albums ever since then. I respect her as a singer-songwriter, and I like the way that she is always striving for different ways to present her songs. Most of the time, they have presented themselves in sort of a traditional indie rock form. Guitars, bass, drums, and then the vocal melody. And that's my style, you know, especially when it's sung by a woman. It works for me like this. But what I've noticed over the last album or two from Waxahatchee is she is moving in a little more country direction, putting in little elements of southern music and folk and country especially. And this new album, St. Cloud, has a serious country vibe on it. Now, not the kind of modern bro country, pop country stuff that you would hear on a country radio station or on like a country channel on Sirius or something, but in the old school tradition of a great singer-songwriter, again, presenting in a country form. I don't know what other words I could put it in. It's not necessarily for fans of mainstream country. It is for people who consider their country collection to feature, you know, Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash and Dolly Parton, and, you know, like maybe you got a dozen country records and that's your world. Now, her being from Alabama, her country world is a lot broader than that. But I come from the indie rock world, and so that's the way I sort of view things, and I think if you're that kind of country listener, you would very much appreciate it. These are easily Katie Crutchfield's best songs of her career. Her just writing and her performance and her voice on this one are so fucking good. It's the #1 album for a reason, folks. I love this record, Waxahatchee, St. Cloud. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it. Leave a comment if you think I forgot any records. I probably did. I would appreciate your input, thoughts on this video. Take care, everyone. Happy New Year.